A few years ago in Sweden, a nurse working in a government hospital was assigned to an elderly woman patient. This patient was a tough case. She had not spoken a word in 3 years. The other nurses disliked her and tried to avoid her as much as they could. Basically, they ignored her. But this new nurse decided to try unconditional love. The elderly woman patient rocked all day long in a rocking chair. So one day, this new nurse pulled up a rocking chair beside the lady and just rocked along with her and loved her. Occasionally, the nurse would reach over and gently touch and pat her hand, little by little. And after a few days, the patient suddenly opened her eyes and turned to the nurse and said, "You're so kind." The next day, she talked some more. And incredibly, in 2 weeks' time, the lady was well enough to be released from the hospital and go home. Now, of course, it doesn't always work that way. But studies are accumulating which show, without question, that love has healing power. And today's gospel describes how Jesus demonstrated the love and the mercy of the Father for his children by his teaching and healing ministry. We can see from Jesus' actions that true discipleship means getting involved in giving selfless service to others. On a single Sabbath day, we see Jesus taking part in the synagogue worship, teaching with authority, exorcising a demon, healing Simon's mother-in-law, and then in the evening it says, he cured many who were sick with various diseases and drove out many demons. Jesus had spent himself and most of his time ministering to the needs of others all day long, giving healing, forgiveness, and new beginning to many, many people. Yet, Jesus then rose early the next morning and went off to a deserted place to pray. And then he chose to go on to a nearby village to do more of the same all over again. You see, there's something beautiful about this kind of exhaustion. To be exhausted in service of others is invigorating. When we are serving others, we are acting in love. As we can see from that story of the Swedish nurse, love can heal us physically. It's no wonder, as today's gospel tells us, people were healed by coming into physical contact with Jesus. Why? He is love incarnate. And that's what he is calling us to be today. Love made flesh, love personified, love lived out. But all too often, I think we tend to get into the Job mode, right? As we heard in our first reading, Job, he had a rough go. He says, is not man's life on earth a drudgery? Are not his days those of hirelings? He is a slave who longs for the shade, a hireling who waits for his wages. No question, Job had a rough go. We get so negative about life that we just stay totally consumed with ourselves and can't think about anyone else, let alone reaching out in service to another or to love another. And what's the result of that? We become bitter and hateful and angry at everything and everybody. And sure, we can put on a good face when we're out in public for a few minutes. But when we're home, we treat one another with disdain. We think only of ourselves and not about what the others in our life might be dealing with at any given moment. And I think this happens within our own families. I get amazed sometimes at how hateful husbands and wives can be towards each other. How they can simply pay no attention to each other except when they want something. I'm amazed at how angry young people can be at their parents and how disrespectful they can be towards them. I have seen kids cuss their parents out like nobody's business. It makes me chuckle because my mother was 4'8" tall. And let me tell you, one disrespectful word to my mother, and she would have beat the living tar out of me without batting an eyelash. Disrespect did not fly in my house at all. I'm amazed at how negative parents can be towards their children, or how they can put their children down or ignore them. I'm amazed at how friends can be sneaky towards one another, or lie to one another, or do things behind their back, or make fun of one another in a derogatory way, or simply exclude one another from their group. But in essence, what is all of this? This is what I see as something of a hell on earth. This is the kind of stuff that hell is made of. This is not what Jesus intends for us. This is not what he expects from us, nor is it what he has shown us. When I think of the amount of time we spend being bitter and hateful and angry, it makes me realize how much more we need to try to exhaust ourselves the way Jesus did. At the end of the day, Jesus had to look back and be pleased with all the ways he had loved and taught love through all the miracles he performed. At the end of the day, can we look back and be pleased because we have loved and taught love? God permits the difficult things, the sufferings, the tragedies in our life, not to make us bitter or angry or hateful, but to make us realize that love can conquer all things, even the most difficult things that we encounter day in and day out. A bitter, angry, and hateful life is a selfish life, and it leaves us with only one companion, the devil. But a congenial, a caring, and a loving life is a selfless life that surrounds us with friends and family and joy. Because what it all boils down to is a glimpse of hell or a glimpse of heaven while still on earth. Which glimpse do you prefer?